People are talking about our halos, but are they right or maybe a little bit wrong, or are they missing something, or maybe they're just completely confused? Here's what we're going to do. The Halo brothers are here to clear everything up for you.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. What's Jon Heyman saying about our Angels and the offseason? We'll discuss that. And what is Jeff Passan saying about Arte Moreno and how he's leading our favorite team? We'll talk about that. And what is Buster Olney saying about the future of Ron Washington and our Halos? We have all the details and our answers on today's show. But before we talk about the Angels, we want to thank our sponsor, FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today.
Everybody's talking about me. I can't hear a word they're saying.
This is the one I was thinking of. People are talking about people.
There you go. Yeah. Happy Friday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
It's our fourth season as a host of Locked On Angels. We've been lifelong fans of this team. We're talking Angels baseball every single weekday with you Monday through Friday. Now, if you're looking for a recap of what happened in last night's Mariners game, remember, we like to recap the entire series from the weekend. We'll do all of that on Monday. So hold your horses. Hopefully the Angels destroyed the Mariners, but can't be sure about that at this point of the season. But we will recap that come Monday. However, Mike, let's get into what everybody's saying about the Halos, including what Jon Heyman of the New York Post Sports had to say.
Yeah, he was already talking about the offseason, and of course he's talking about the Angels because there's never any playoffs in Anaheim anymore, and so we have to look forward to the offseason. But he brought up the Angels recently, and he said that they've been mentioned to potentially be a landing spot for some big-name free agents this offseason. So here's the names, Johnny, that he included. Alex Bregman, Bichette, Pete Alonso, Murakami, who's coming over from Japan, Suarez, who's currently with the Mariners, was traded from the Diamondbacks, and Shane Bieber, not Justin Bieber. Bieber will be a free agent as well. Those are the names that are tied to the Angels. Now, we knew we were going to do this segment. I shared that with you. You said, do me a favor. And I did you the favor. Tell our everydayers what favor you needed me to do.
Mike looked up the agents or the management group for each of these players that Jon Heyman listed as potential free agents landing in Anaheim. Why did I ask Mike to do that? Well, the answer is simple. Very often, Jon Heyman, who is a friend to one of the most prominent, probably the most prominent agent out there, Scott Boras, who manages players like Joe Adell. He's managing players like Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso. He's often hard to deal with because he often tries to get max value for his players. The reason I thought this was a very good point to make was because Jon Heyman will stir the pot, Mike. He'll hit the hornet's nest a little bit in terms of free agency and Boras clients. And in this case, there's a handful of Boras clients on this list that I think, yes, there are other people who are not Boras clients on this list, but Alex Bregman is a Boras client. Pete Alonso, Boras client, and Murakami from Japan is also represented by Scott Boras's agency. The reason why Jon Heyman is often included in these conversations is because, one, he does talk to Boras, but two, oftentimes the Angels will be leveraged, so to speak, so that people will go, oh, well, the Angels are interested. We better move quickly on this player and cut him a deal. Oh, we better get him a good size deal so that they want to come here. And it's not just the Angels that get leverage, but often it is. But it's baseball insider talk to pit teams against one another and drum up interest in clients. Now, to be fair, Bichette, Eugenio Suarez, and Shane Bieber are not Boris clients.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a little bit of I'm gonna throw in an M&M in this trail mix, for every Boris player, I'll name a non-Boris player, right? And so I think that's where we need to start with this conversation, knowing that Jon Heyman, remember, he was on New York sports radio before the season, and somebody made a joke. The host made a joke about him, being how much do you get paid by Boris to drum up this conversation? And he went, I can't believe you would say that. I can't even believe it. And literally that tone of voice too.
Yep.
So having said all that, take this conversation with a grain of salt, because while it is fun to think on who could potentially land in Anaheim, one, Jon Heyman likes to stir the pot, and two, we still have Arte Moreno as the owner of this team, and these are some of the top free agents that are going to be out there. Once again, Alex Bregman, Bo Bichette, Pete Alonso, Munetaka Murakami, Eugenio Suarez, and Shane Bieber. Now, that's not to say that none of them make sense for the Angels, because actually they all make sense for the Angels, don't they, Mike?
They do. I think if I look at this list, I'm immediately removing Bregman and Pete Alonso for sure. I'm immediately removing them, because I think that those two guys, being Boris agents, are going to go to the top paying team. Now, Murakami is an interesting player, because he could be somebody that the Angels could maybe sneak in and grab and have on this team, although it is a Boris player. So I could see him maybe trying to sign somewhere else. Maybe the Dodgers go after him and they just have a whole team filled with players from Japan who are really, really good, right? The thing that I think makes sense for the Halos is Suarez or Bieber. And I think it's going to be I think it's going to be an or. I don't think it's going to be an and. Simply because I don't think that the Angels are going to give that much money out this offseason for free agents, because we did a previous show where we talked about where they would be at. I think it was 147 million before some of the arbitration numbers that come in. So the Angels have some financial flexibility. They still have to pay Anthony Rendon. He'll be on there. And some of the numbers are going to go up. Joe Adell's number is for sure going to go up. Taylor Ward's number for sure is going to go up. And guys like Ohapi and Neto are hitting arbitration. They were making a little over $700,000 this year. So they're going to hit the $1 million mark, and it's going to be more than that because of their performance, probably more for Neto than for like Ohapi. So I think it's going to be Suarez or Bieber. Knowing Arte Moreno, though, I don't know if Bieber is going to be somebody that he would want to give money to, because he's a pitcher, right? Why would I give money to somebody who's out there just once every 5 days, right? That's an actual quote from Arte Moreno. So right. I think if the Angels get anybody on this particular list, it's probably going to be Suarez, but I don't even know if they have a shot at getting him, because he's playing for a competitive team right now in the Mariners, and he's going to cost a lot of money. So there's a lot of factors that play into this. Unfortunately, you're right. The Angels are used as leverage to try to get the cost to go up for other teams. I wonder if that's going to work this offseason based upon what the Angels have communicated, what Arte has communicated, and what they've shown the league in what they're going to do, that they're not going to go out and spend for the top free agent guys. They're going to give money, a good amount of money, to guys like Kikuchi, but he's not the top free agent guy. He was a middle of the road guy. Right.
All of these guys are going to make a ton of money this offseason. And if there's anybody on this list that I would like to see, to me, it's Bo Bichette, because he's hitting age 27. He'll be 28 in March. Okay. And when you're hitting those he's entering his prime.
Yeah.
And the thing that the Blue Jays did was that they gave him an extension, and they gave him a lot of money to stay in Toronto, but they didn't buy out very many years of Bo Bichette. And the one thing about Bichette is the consistency. Last year was really his first down year. He was injured a lot, only got into 81 games, 225 average. Mike, every year before that and this year, he's hit around 300. In fact, this year he's sitting at 311 currently, which is just fantastic. This guy has 91 strikeouts this year. That's it. And that's the whole that's the whole dang team,
Yeah.
because the Blue Jays put the ball in play. Here it is, a 14.5% strikeout rate, which is fantastic. And so for Bichette to come, and I know he's a shortstop, but he could easily play third base. I think that would be the idea there.
Huh.
And I think also wherever Bichette lands will be as a third baseman. He could certainly still play shortstop. He's young enough to do it. But I think in the Angels case, it would make a lot of sense for him to move over to third base. So again, just turning 28 next year, entering the prime ages of 28 to age 32, 33. There's no better time to back up the Brinks truck for Bichette. Now, will the Angels do that? No. Like you said, like that's TBD. Look, I have stopped trying to guess what Arte Moreno is going to do in the offseason.
Right.
Because I liked the moves that they did this past year with adding Kikuchi and even adding Hendricks. I know you and I were like, what the heck? But when you think about guys who had to eat innings for this rotation, this is the fewest amount of starters they've used in a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
What's it up to now? About eight different guys starting games, and that includes I think Ryan Zefferjon has an opener. And so that's just a huge difference from where the team has been last year. So if I look at this list and I think about guys who make sense, Bichette would be my number one. Shane Bieber, I'm going to wait and see how things play out for Shane Bieber, because we might very much have a Jack Flaherty situation where Flaherty, goes to the Dodgers, helps them win, or even Walker Buehler, right? He got the big contract with Boston because of the way that Buehler pitched in the postseason, but you could tell there were signs that he wasn't doing so great. And so, he stepped up in October, but then he got let go from the Red Sox, right?
Right.
Finally, I think, as much as it pains me to say it, Alex Bregman over at third base makes a lot of sense if the Angels could pull that off. However, he is a Boris client. So again, Bichette, Shane Bieber, Bregman would be the order that I would look at these guys. But the big question is, I don't even know if I believe any of this.
Yeah. I think the best move of this list among the hitters is Bichette, because Angel Stadium can be a place where batting averages go to die. Angel Stadium can be a place where maybe home runs go to die. There is a marine layer sometimes. Torrey Hunter's talked about that. But I think Bichette makes the most sense because he's a contact guy. If the Angels are going to prioritize anything this offseason, it's got to be contact people. It's got to be people. They don't need more power, right? They're going to have enough power next year. And if they don't, they need to be able to have some of that crazy kind of hitting that they had in the early 2000s, where they're making contact and moving runners over and getting base hits. And I think that is what Bichette can bring to this team. And I think he would fit into this lineup, slot in really perfectly, because he'll have a lot of power around him. But him and Shawnuel and maybe even Teodosio can be kind of at the top and in the middle and at the end and really balance out the powerful strikeouts that happen in this lineup.
Yeah. 2021, he had 29 home runs, 102 RBI. This year, he's got 18 home runs, but he's just 8 back of that RBI total. So think about that for a minute. The fact that he's driving in guys like crazy because he's putting the ball in play.
Yeah. And
he's got almost as many RBIs as 2021. He's 8 behind that total of 102 with 94 right now. And Mike, he's got an 840 OPS. And so again, the fact that this guy puts the ball in play, I think, is what honestly needs to get done for the Halos next season.
And no Halo right now has an OPS over 800. So he would immediately be the best hitter in this lineup if they signed him. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, what did Jeff Passan have to say about the Angels and Arte Moreno? Did he pass and bomb on us? We'll talk about that in just a minute.
You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products, and you thought, I'm sure that this probably doesn't work. There's so many products out there. It's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything for you. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. It's the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's trusted by over 1.5 million people. It's not just hype. It's a supplement that's clinically tested to target the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. Nutrafol is a simple add to your day. Just take 4 pills with a meal, no prescription needed, and you can feel good knowing that Nutrafol is NSF certified and backed by a peer review study, multiple peer review studies. You'll see thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. And for a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On Angel listeners $10 off your first month's subscription. So you'll get free shipping with that as well when you go to Nutrafol.com and then use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB.
This is Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can hear us wherever you get podcasts, and whether you're watching or listening, get in on the conversation by finding today's show on YouTube. Get in the comment section while you're there. Hit that like button, add subscribe button. Hit us up on social media at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Wherever you like to social your medias, we'd love to hear from you there as well. Now, let's talk about Jeff Passan, baseball's insider for ESPN, or I should say ESPN's insider for baseball. Jeff Passan actually spoke about Arte Moreno recently, and specifically how Arte runs the Angels. Here's what Passan had to say. The love that Arte has for that championship team, and really for the late 90s, early 2000s Angels, like Darren Erstad, Troy Percival, Tim Salmon, Garrett Anderson. The Angels are where they are because I think Arte Moreno is constantly trying to recapture something from a bygone era. It's almost as if the Angels in some way are the team that acts like sabermetrics revolution never happened. I'm not saying that they're behind other teams or have been as bad as they have since Mike Trout arrived, because they don't use analytics or don't use them to the extent others do, but it's part of it. It's part of the stew of discontent that has taken place over there. So what do you hear that you agree with or disagree with in that statement, Mike?
It feels like Arte does love former players. And we'll talk about Troy Percival here in a second. But something that you've talked about is that perhaps that would be a good person for them to consider when it comes to managers, that you get a former player, because he seems to really want to be honorific to the former players. Not all the former players, right? Rod Carew apparently had a falling out, not welcome, right? Jared Weaver, he said, I haven't been invited back, right? Until recently. And so I think there is a honorific position posture that Arte holds towards these former players. And I think a part of it is because they won for him. They won when he was first around, and he's trying to recapture that. And I said to a friend the other day, who's an everydayer, I said, I think that the issue really for Arte is he inherited a really good system. Bill Stoneman and people who were drafting and all of those things. And
Eddie Bain, the scouting director. Yeah.
And my friend said, well, what do you think happened? Like, he won early, but how come he's not winning anymore? Well, because those guys got old. And then he didn't invest in the minor leagues, didn't invest in drafting, didn't invest in development. And so what happened was Garrett Anderson, Darren Erstad, Tim Salmon, Troy Gloss, they all leave or retire, and you have nobody to replace them. And then the people got old in the organization. Bill Stoneman retired, and other things happened. They fired Eddie Bain, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, all of this happened under his watch. And I think what he did is he went with people that he has grown to trust, right or wrong. He went with people that he has earned trust with, and they have earned his trust. And that's why you have the Carpinos and others that are around, because he's done business with them for years and years and years. The problem is that they don't know how to do baseball stuff.
No.
And baseball stuff
baseball stuff.
Thank you. Baseball stuff has to be done by baseball people that know what they're doing. And so I think what Arte has done over the last 10, 12 years is try to find those baseball people, but at a cheap cost. And it hasn't served him well, which is why I think he really honors the players from the past, and why I think you have them around in different roles, like Torrey Hunter currently is sitting in the dugout, right? Because I think he trusts those guys, and I don't think that he knows what questions to ask or what to be curious about.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows. I'm not calling him dumb, but I think he might be baseball dumb, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's asking a guy who has worked at FedEx for years and years and years, or an Amazon warehouse for years and years and years. Now I need you to fly a plane.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me try to figure this out. Right.
Yeah.
And for the first 5-6 years, you're going to have the pilot and the co-pilot who are experts flying with you. In fact, all you're going to do is just sit in the seat. And that's really what happened with Arte. Once they stopped, Arte was like, okay, I need somebody to really help me with this. I trust John Carpino. I'm going to bring him in. I trust this person. I'm going to bring him in. Tony Regans, he's been around for a while. I'm going to bring him in. It's not working. Jerry Dipoto, he seems kind of an interesting guy. Billy Epler worked with the Yankees. Let's bring him in. Problem is that he just kind of was pulling apples from the tree to try to fill in the gaps. And it obviously hasn't worked, which is why this makes sense. I agree. He's been very honorific to the players of the past, and I wouldn't be surprised to see more of those players around and perhaps take some roles as the Angels move into the future.
Honorific, except for retiring numbers like 15 and 16, right? Yeah.
Can I say honorific with quotes?
Yeah, exactly. The part about not using analytics is just so very obvious because, well, we have the proof in it. They just built their pitching and hitting labs last year.
Yeah.
And have just started to use them this year. That's something that should have been done 15 years ago, right? Like that's when everybody was starting to just come around on the fact that like, hey, we need to be able to, and let me break it down here. Analytics is not the devil. It's not a bad word. It's not a hush-hush word. What they do is they need to be able to break down certain things about how a hitter throws or how a pitcher throws or how a hitter swings. And they're just now getting into that. And Mike, we'll be able to share this at a later date, but I have a friend whose son is basically, he's destined to be a number one pick. And he got hooked up to the machinery, if you will. And this friend showed me the report that you get from that. And my goodness, you would not believe the level of detail and scrutiny. And it's all very important. It might seem like there's a lot of information. What do we do with it? It's incredible. It'll explain to you why when you turn your head like this, when you're throwing the ball, why your like elbow hurts, right? Like, where does it hurt? Here, It's just like the level of detail that it gets into is just insane. And the Angels have been without that kind of information for a long time. So you wonder why they always get hurt. You wonder why they, do the approach that they do at the plate where they're swinging for the fences because they don't have anything else.
Yeah.
They haven't had anything else. And that's a problem. And the fact that they haven't had that at the major league level, look at all the other teams who have that kind of stuff. That's why they are where they are, right? And so it kind of leads into the next point.
Yeah.
And this is what Jeff Passan had to say. He said there was a time a couple of years ago where Arte Moreno was just ready to straight up hand the entirety of the Angels pitching program to Troy Percival, like literally. The Angels had a whole staff and Troy Percival was going to be in charge and Arte was eventually talked out of that. Well, we do know that guys like Dylan Axelrod and I'm trying to remember the other guy who was part of the coaching.
Carlisle.
Buddy Carlisle.
Yep.
They were part of the pitching program with the Angels that Perry Manassian had hired. Some of these guys had come from Driveline, where a lot of these guys go for the offseason. Players from all over the league go for the offseason to work on their hitting, work on their pitching, get hooked up to the machinery, all of that stuff to figure out what's going right, what's going wrong. We had those guys in the organization. And Percival came in and said something about these nerds on their iPads, and it freaked Arte out, and apparently was ready to put Percy in charge. Look, we love Percival. Nothing wrong with him. But you can't sacrifice progress because some guy came in and went, well, this isn't how we did it in my day, right? And look, the way you did it in your day, it worked. Doesn't work in 2025.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the problem with the Angels is they're so behind the time. So back to the idea of Arte loves his former Halos and he loves putting them in charge. Is this going to be a problem if somebody like Torrey Hunter, who we've been clamoring for, becomes the manager in 2026? What do you think?
Torrey's got to be brilliant, right? He's got to be brilliant. I think what this affirms, the whole conversation with Troy Percival, it just affirms that Arte is looking for people that he can trust. And he just doesn't trust any baseball people that are new.
Yeah.
He trusts all the old baseball people. And I don't mean old like old guys or old like the old way of thought, traditional thought, right? I'm thinking old guys that were around that helped him win. He's like, oh, Troy helped us win, so I gotta trust this guy. I think what this says about Arte is that he's very untrusting about anybody outside of those that have helped the organization to be good in the early 2000s, which means, back to your point, I think that we're going to have to see Arte go in the direction of getting some former players to be managers and coaches and things like that, because he doesn't trust anybody outside of that. And I think right now he's probably really struggling with Perry Manassian, Ron Washington, and the whole crew. He's probably like, how come this didn't work this year? Yeah. I honestly think that he does not know, because I think he's baseball stupid. And I think he just doesn't know what he doesn't know. And now he's trying to fly a plane, and he came from an Amazon warehouse. I think that that's exactly what's happening in Arte Moreno's world.
That's a metaphor, friends. That's a metaphor for what's happening with the Angels.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making it really easy for you to get in on all of the action. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. It fits however you like to bet, and I like to bet, whether it's player props or building the same game parlay or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. FanDuel is quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So, ready to play? Download the FanDuel app right now. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, FanDuel.com to get started. And when you do, place your first $5 bet.
All right, last thing that everybody has been talking about is Buster Olney, also of ESPN. He spoke about the Halos, said this about Arte and the managerial position. Here's a quote. In the end, owner Arte Moreno, who is not inclined to defer to his general manager on the biggest decisions, will determine whether Ron Washington returns to his position. Big statement made there.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because Perry Manassian finally had the opportunity to hire a manager, and he hired Ron Washington. And I think Arte thought that was a great idea. Yep. Obviously, they hired him, right? But this was the first time that Perry was able to make an administration decision, right? To have some influence over the fact that this isn't players, this isn't coaching, this is essentially the top dog in the system in terms of managerial, in terms of management. And then from there, Ron gets to hire his staff. Very interesting that now it seems like we're at a crossroads where Arte Moreno wants to be the guy who brings in the manager. Mike, I hate to say it, but like I said the other day, I think it has to be an Arte decision. I think the managerial decision has to be an Arte decision because, like I said, what was that, Monday?
Yep.
Monday. Man, it felt like a million years ago. Monday, I said that Arte needs someone, basically like what you just said, that he can trust.
Yeah.
The only guy that he trusted for 20 years was Mike Scioscia.
Mm-hmm.
Out of everybody who came and went and retired and got fired, and GMs who sucked and GMs who were great, Mike Scioscia was the one constant. And Scioscia had Arte's ear. And as the manager, I think that's the best position you can put yourself in. So if we're going to get somebody Scioscia-like, it's got to be, like I said on Monday, somebody from the glory days, right? And everything that we just read affirms how Arte feels about the glory days of Angels baseball. So is Arte going to want Ron Washington back, or is he going to go in a new direction? What do you think?
I think that it feels like Arte's going to take all of the stuff on the table and just knock it off. I feel like he's pulling the tablecloth out. Doesn't it feel like that? Like, I think that there's going to be a question of like, how come we didn't win? Like what happened with this team this year? We can't say it was because of a bunch of injuries.
Right.
I know that there were some, but Trout's going to play the most games he's played in 5 years. Right. We can't say he doesn't.
I feel like you're writing the article that's going to come out in March right now. Like everything you're saying is what we're going to read in, who's the guy he likes to talk to all the time? I forget his name, but it's Sports Illustrated. And this is what's going to be in that article.
Yeah. I think that's all he's going to say. We can't say that we didn't try to sign a pitcher and we didn't have a good pitching staff. And we can't say that we didn't develop guys because we have these young guys, right? Like all of those things are going to be a part of the conversation with Arte Moreno. And so I think he's looking at this going, man, you just didn't do it. Perry, you didn't do it. And we struck out a lot and we didn't come through and we finished under 500 again. And we were better than last year, but you didn't do it. So my gut feeling says that Artie's going to kind of clear the table. Now, the two caveats to that, John, are the stadium stuff that we're not going to know about until 2026,
right?
And the Tyler Skaggs stuff.
Right.
I don't know if he'll be distracted by that stuff and just go, hey, Perry, figure it out. I think that if those things do get in the way, it's going to be an irritant. I think he's going to be irritated. We didn't win, and I have to deal with this offseason, off the field stuff. I think it's going to be an irritant. So we might see an Arte Moreno who goes clear the table, but then not have a strategy or a plan as to what he's going to do. Or we might see Arte go, hey, Perry, clear the table. I want to refresh. I'm going to keep you, but I need a reset for all of these things. I just feel a reset is coming. And the reason why I feel that is not based on anything. I just feel like a reset is coming because this is an unsatisfied, unfulfilled year, had a lot of potential. I know we thought 500 at best, right? Like, and you had some good arguments about how they could have made the playoffs. But I think that this is an unfulfilled year for Arte Moreno in his mind. Being baseball stupid, I think he's like, I thought we did enough to get to the playoffs. I don't know why we didn't get there.
Yeah. And that's the difference between what we see as fans, what we see as everydayers, and what we see as podcast hosts versus the way that Arte Moreno has treated this team for the last 10 years. He doesn't understand what the disconnect is. Hey, buddy, it's the lack of analytics. It's the lack of surrounding guys like Shohei and Mike Trout with guys who can be league average, not guys you claim off the waiver wire, right? Hey, buddy, it's actually paying for an ace. It's actually ponying up the money to get Garrett Cole because you coulda, you just didn't want to pay the money because they only pitches every 5 days, right? It's all stuff that we see that he doesn't understand. And that's the problem here. And so to give the power back to Arte and let him make decisions, on one hand, I think it needs to be that way because whoever he wants to pick for his manager is going to be somebody that he listens to. And if it is somebody like Torrey Hunter or even Albert Pujols, they're not going to put up with mediocrity, like I said on Monday. They're not going to put up with that. They're going to have Artie's ear and they're going to say, look, dude, I need this and I need that. Here's what we need to do. Now, with the caveat, like you said, of the stuff from outside the stadium, about the stadium and about the Skaggs family, if those are distractions for him, and he lets his baseball people do baseball things, a lot of it's going to be in the hands of Perry Manassian with Arte holding the purse strings once again. So if those things are a distraction, I wouldn't be surprised if we get an offseason like we did last year where, we make some improvements. We get some guys that we're, excited about that are going to help the rotation. You say Kikuchi and all that stuff. But it's going to be that kind of offseason again. Modest additions, but not anything that's going to blow us away or be a franchise changer in 2026.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview show with Drake Toll, Gary Patterson, Jesse Hawley, and all of our Locked On experts. A college football preview show that only Locked On can do. You can catch it every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get in the comment section, and while you're there, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button. Helps put us in front of other Angel fans who might not know about Locked On Angels. Mike, when we come back on Monday, what do we have on deck?
We're talking about how the Angels crushed the dreams of the Mariners this weekend, or we're talking about how the Angels didn't come through and crush the dreams of the Mariners. We got takeaways from all 4 games, including last night's game on Monday on Locked On Angels.
All right, we hope you'll come back and join us for that. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Monday.
Baseball stuff!
Baseball stuff! I just watched Liar Liar the other day.